Thank you for joining us for another episode of Hello APGD, a neighborhood podcast about the Audubon Park Garden District in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Michael Lothrop, and today we'll be speaking with Cesar Cruz of Bakarí at the Audubon Park Community Market every Monday night from 5 to 8 p.m. in the Stardust parking lot. Visit the market's website at audubonmarket.com and be sure to follow Cesar's Instagram at cmbakary.fl and on Facebook at c-m-bakary. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, or if you'd like to be a sponsor, please feel free to message me on Instagram at HelloAPGDPod. Thank you for listening. This episode is brought to you in part by Trevor Brown of Fannie Hillman and Associates. For listings, market trends, helpful home buyer and seller tips, email directly to Trevor at fanniehillman.com or find him on Instagram at trevorbrown407. And with me today is Cesar Cruz of Bakarí. Welcome, Cesar.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. You are one of our favorite vendors at the Monday night market at Stardust.
Thank you.
And so you have sourdough pizzas and you have loaves of all sorts of handmade, no additive breads that are incredible and they sell out very quickly.
Yeah, they do.
I usually am not able to get to the market in time to photograph some of the breads because they go so quickly, which is a nice thing.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, people know quality, and you are doing something very exceptional, and I'm very excited to hear more about your story and learn about the origin and everything. I understand that you do have a culinary background. You went to culinary school.
I went to culinary school here in Orlando, Cordon Bleu, and then I worked in restaurants for 12 years. And then I opened a pizzeria in Sanford with some partners, and that didn't work out. It was right in the middle of COVID.
Okay.
So that didn't work out. The pizzeria closed, and I just started making bread out of my house and started evolving from there.
So it's interesting, like in doing this podcast, part of the goal was sort of to promote the businesses that are struggled through COVID. It's interesting to find how much that situation, the pandemic, the shutdown, everybody kind of pivoting, restaurants sort of, changing how they do business and that sort of thing. And then all of this creativity and all of this, like, just having some time to think about it. It's like, this is something that I really care about.
Yeah.
Right? This is maybe something that I want to pursue and really kind of perfect and just differentiate so that even though there are other bread makers in the area, like, you want to do the best version of what you're doing.
Yeah, that's part of what I started making bread because I like it. Mm-hmm. I've been making bread since I started culinary school, so like 13 years ago.
Wow.
And it was just like a side thing that I will do on the weekends. I'll make a loaf or two here. And it was always there. Yeah. But, you go to the store to try to get a loaf of bread and
there's not many good options,
so
right?
I started making bread at home. Every time I wanted bread, I will make it.
Yeah.
And then just all the time.
Yeah, we have Old Hearth is one of the big bread makers, and they provide to a lot of restaurants, and their stuff is exceptional as well. And they're doing it at this like capacity, this scale that's pretty incredible. And they were in East End, and we definitely miss them. So it's wonderful to have bread back in the neighborhood, even if it's just for one night. And people flock to that. They appreciate that.
They like it.
Yeah.
Can never have enough.
Yeah, it's hard to go back to other breads when you've had really good bread.
Thank you.
Of course. And to have the palate for it and to have the appreciation. And I think the ingredients obviously are key. So where you are sourcing your flours from, tell me a bit about those and the types of bread that you carry.
I buy my flour straight from the mills. The main one that I'm using right now is this mill in Illinois called Janie's Mill. It's all organic, stone ground flour. Mm-hmm. I've tried almost all the mills. I say almost because, I know there's a lot more there that I haven't tried. But the big ones I've tried, all of them. Every time I had extra money, I'm buying flour from this mill here.
Yeah.
Came a point in my place that it was like, a couple 100 pounds of flour just sitting there from different mills from, Arizona, Oregon, California, Utah, you name it, Oklahoma, like.
Wow.
And this is the one that I settle on. This is the one that I liked. I like the flavor, I like the texture, I like the way it behaves. And people seem to like it, so that's what I'm using.
It's amazing. Like, that is such a cool story. Like, the fact that you have tried all of these other flowers, that the attributes of the taste and the texture and working with it and just kind of understanding how to really like make it the best version.
Yeah, they all behave different. And it's funny because you'll try the same variety of wheat, that the exact same one from one mill in Oregon and one mill in Utah and one mill in Texas, and they're all different.
That's amazing.
It's like wine, the terroir.
Right. It all starts with that naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how it's processed factors into it as well. And
stone ground and then sifted. The how fine is it? Like I was using one from South Carolina or North Carolina, all stone ground, organic, but I didn't like the texture of it. It was too grainy. This one is stone ground, but you get the powderiness from regular flour, so that when you mix it, you feel how smooth it gets.
Yeah.
The other one, you could still feel graininess, and I didn't like that. If I want graininess, I'll use semolina flour or something like that. I'm saying my pizza recipe is a bit ridiculous.
Yeah. How so?
I use 5 different flours.
Really?
So it's all sourdough. The same thing. It's a modified bread recipe.
Okay.
But I blend 5 different flours, and I lowered the water.
And why is that? Why so many flours?
Because I like the flavor of it.
Oh, okay.
I'm all about flavor. For me, it's flavor first. When I worked at restaurants, it was the same thing. Flavor first. Somebody's trying, like when I was sous chef or executive sous chef or whatever, somebody's trying to present you a dish. Oh, look at the way it looks. I'm like, it looks pretty. How does it taste?
Yeah.
And they'll look at me, but it looks pretty. I'm like, I don't care how it looks. How does it taste? Flavor first.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with the pizza, same thing with the bread. Flavor first. If it doesn't taste good, it's not going out.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's funny how we've lost sight of that. So, like, no pun intended, but with the Instagrammable dishes, like people always taking photos of their food, and it's like, okay, that looks great. Yeah. But, you have
how does it taste?
Right. Yeah. That should be the forefront. That should be first.
Yeah. That's why sometimes, like, I don't even go out anymore to eat.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
You start reading about this place and you start looking at the pictures, and then you go and you're like, really? Really? Like, I'd rather cook at home.
Yeah, well, you have the skill set to make things really the way that you like them, and to make them really awesome, and the things that you use in them, right?
Yeah, but it still should be about the flavor. Like, why are you gonna put all this time and effort into creating this dish, and then you taste it and it's like, it needs salt, it needs acid, it needs this, it needs that. Like, that should be a given.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I shouldn't have to think about the things that is missing.
Right.
I should be able to just take a bite and enjoy it.
So aside from the restaurants that you have worked at, which are all really, really wonderful, are there some that stand out that are like your go-to restaurants? Have you been to the Strand before?
No.
That's one of our favorite spots. You've got to check them out.
Yeah.
I think they just got recognized by Michelin as well, which is so well deserved. They are exceptional in every way.
Capa.
Yeah, I've heard.
Capa's really good. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah.
Like I say, I don't really go out.
Yeah.
Busy work making bread and like eating fast food because,
Convenience.
What
are your fast food go-tos? Just curious.
Five Guys.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Hunger Street.
Oh, I love Hunger Street.
And the other taco place, El Pueblo, on Aloma.
That is one of the best spots. Yeah. That is incredible.
That's usually the 3 that I'm rotating.
Okay. Yeah, those are good ones.
Yeah, and then, frozen meals from Trader Joe's.
Uh-huh.
Those are always
just get
good.
You by. Yeah, in a pinch. That's good. Yep.
And then making, improvised pizzas and sandwiches while I'm baking.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
I live off bread.
That's a good life.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why. I mean, you have this air about you, this just very positive energy, and I think.
I
that's
try
why.
to be. Imagine otherwise, how are you going to live?
I know.
Complaining about everything.
Life is too short for that.
Just make the best out of it.
Yeah.
And keep going.
Totally.
Don't talk about it. Just go.
Yeah. Yeah. And you bring so much happiness to the community too.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. So I wanted to ask, what, aside from the Monday night market in Audubon Park, what are some of the other ones that people can find your products?
Oh, the only other one we're doing right now is the packing district.
Okay.
On Saturday mornings from 9 to 1 at OBT and Princeton. Is on the parking lot of the new YMCA that just opened recently.
Yeah.
That's the only one right now. Before that, I was in Mount Dora, but it was too far.
That is a drive for sure.
It was like close to an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I can.
That's a tough sell, isn't
So
it?
I had to leave that, and then this is the only one. We've been there since the beginning, since they opened, since day one. So, and we're waiting for Roots to open their campus, so we can hopefully be there, doing bread and hopefully teaching some classes.
That's
so
cool.
We'll see. But yeah, that's the only two markets right now.
Yeah.
Audubon and Packing District. The other days I'm baking bread for all the other restaurants. They're trying to buy my bread, Ravenous Pig, Bruno, the Kitty Beautiful downtown, the golf course. And every once in a while I'll get a message. Hey, can I order 2 loaves from you? I'll pick them up. Sure. What day? So, they stop by the golf course, get their bread.
Ah, so that could be an option sometimes too.
Yeah,
or is
we're
it...
working on that. The guy that's running the golf course is actually working on possibly doing like a farmer's market in there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But, there's a lot of moving things there because the golf course got acquired by the city of Winter Park last year. So now it's a city-run thing. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, that's also in the works.
Cool. So people can contact you online if there's a special order on a different day or something and that works out.
As long as it's not a Monday or a Friday, everything is good.
All right, cool. Good to know. So after you said about 15 years of making bread and kind of going through all of these iterations and different ingredients, and you've kind of found your thing, right?
Found my flour, my salt.
Yeah.
Filter water. Mm-hmm. The thing with bread is like bread is simple.
Yeah.
It's 4 ingredients. Mm-hmm. It's flour, water, salt, and whatever you use as your yeast. Whether you're using commercial yeast or using a leavener like I do. That's it.
Yeah.
So the better your ingredients, the better your end product will be.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
And it just takes time.
Yeah, that's it's that simple. Although anybody who's made bread knows that it's not that simple.
Oh yeah. I made some pancakes at the beginning. Oh yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
But
make good use of that dough if it doesn't cooperate in the way that it's supposed to. And,
well, there's always croutons. There's always breadcrumbs.
Mm-hmm.
Soup.
That's not a bad thing, right?
Yeah. No. It will always end up being used somewhere.
Yeah. And so you grew up in Puerto Rico.
From Puerto Rico, born and raised.
And I understand there was a bakery like right around the corner from your home. Do you remember like your first time with bread of being like, oh man, this is something that I really love?
Well, I used to go. It was by my grandma's house. It was like 2 blocks away. So she'll hey, go buy some bread. She'll give me money. I will walk to the bakery. I will buy a couple of baguettes. Let's say they're not baguettes. It's like either pan de agua or pan sobao, which is what we have over there. We'll buy pan de agua, 2 pounds. And by the time I got to my grandma's house, at least half a pound or a whole pound was gone. So it was...
How old were you then?
6, 7.
Wow. Yeah. So you were rewarding yourself for doing this big job, obviously, because at that age, it's like, oh, this is an adventure. Like going to the store by yourself, being entrusted with this task, and then you're like, I'm going to go ahead and try this, and then...
Especially because it was so close, you can smell when the bread is coming out of the oven. So you're like, oh, I'm going to the bakery. And then, warm bread, and you're just like snacking the whole time on the way back, and by the time you get there, it's like a whole pound is gone. I'm like, oh, oops.
It's like that was imprinted on you, right? Mm-hmm. That's like that something smell. That, you need to return to that because that's like part of your youth and your origin story.
Yeah, I always remember that. There was this other bakery that every time we will go to the beach, we will stop by this bakery. Their bread was sweet. It was a sweet bread. And 5-6 pounds of that bread, go to the beach, and that's all we will snack the whole day or make sandwiches with it.
Yeah.
So it's either the regular bread or the sweet bread.
Yeah. There's something really special about bread and how it makes us feel. I think that's what keeps people coming back to it. And, one of the things that I'm really fascinated about with sourdough in particular, just it being easier on your stomach, like your digestive system. Tell me about that a bit.
Well, sourdough, since it's a living organism, because you have the bacteria that you're collecting to use as your leavener, that bacteria eats all the sugar from the starch of the flour. So it's doing half the work. Like if you do like a quick bread, you eat it, your stomach now has to process the sugar that's in the starch and then process the fiber, the protein.
Yeah.
When you use sourdough, that bacteria is doing half that job for you. So it's easier to digest. People that have diabetes, it's the lowest food on the glycemic index also. So it's good for them to eat sourdough bread.
Wow.
People that are gluten intolerant can eat it. It sits well on their stomach.
Yeah.
Intolerance, not celiac.
Right. That's
the main
distinction.
difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then if you do sprouted grains, it's even healthier for you because you have the grain, you have the fiber from the grains, plus you have all the consumed sugars and starches. So there's a lot of benefits to sourdough.
Yeah.
I mean, I did it because I wanted good bread.
Yeah.
And I wanted something that actually had some flavor. But then the deeper you look into it, the more you start finding about all these different varieties of wheat. When you do the sprouted grains or you do the porridges, it's so many things that you can do with it.
Yeah. That's incredible. Yeah, and I think those are the things that people don't necessarily think about. They imagine that all bread is kind of equal as far as like how it's going to make them feel, and that's such a falsehood. Like when you really dive into it and you kind of understand, it's like, oh no, this isn't going to like weigh me down. I'm not going to have to take the rest of the day off because I had like a bunch of this bread.
Well, I mean, if you look at all the ingredients that are put on commercial bread, you start looking up like. You find some weird ingredient. I know there's one ingredient that they put on like sandwich bread or like, Wonder Bread.
Yeah.
That is the same chemical that is used to make yoga mats. I mean, think about that.
Eek. That can't go anywhere good.
On top of the flour being bleached.
Right.
And bromated. Bromating means that they add this chemical to oxidize. So it's like an aluminum type of thing that they add to it. So bromated, bleach, and then all the conditioners and stabilizers that they add. You're like, no wonder you eat bread and you immediately feel bad. Like, makes your stomach hurt or makes you gassy. Like,
right.
It's all the chemicals they add. And on top of that, if they're growing it in like a big scale and all the pesticides and fertilizers they use that goes to the grain.
They're starting with bad ingredients and then they're adding even worse ingredients.
Yeah.
So if you're buying stuff at the store and you are looking at that ingredients list, and you'll find plenty of things that you can't pronounce. And not all of them are necessarily as bad as they sound, but there is a question of, what is this really kind of doing to my system? Like, how hard is it to break that down? That there's a cost that you're paying in another way, right? So even though that loaf of bread might be cheaper, it's like they made that at a mass scale. It's not a great product. It's not going to make you feel good. So you have to seek out the things that are actually going to be good for you and taste way better too. Right.
I mean, it might be more expensive, but at the end of the day, it's going to be healthier for you anyway.
Yeah. You can pay now or pay later, basically.
Yep.
And that's the thing with food. Like thinking about, and this is a whole other topic, but food sovereignty and what's affordable for people and wanting to make sure that everybody has access to good food. That's like a greater complication that we have in this country, especially with our food production and that sort of thing. So being mindful of those things, that not everybody gets to eat well because it's very expensive sometimes. But certain things, it's like when you look at a loaf of bread and the amount of meals that can make, just adding some things to it. Ultimately, I mean, bread is usually the thing that people think about when a country is going through financial hardships, and
that's
like everybody needs that, right?
That's what dictates the economy, the price of wheat.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah. So it starts with bread, right? I mean, it's like bread
Always
is life. Yeah.
Bread is life.
And so tell me about some of your culinary background too. You said you were in restaurants. What were some of those? I think Luma was one. Is that right?
Luma was one. Before that, I was in Montreal, a restaurant called A Pied de Cochon. So it was A Pied de Cochon, Luma, Prato, the Ravenous Pig, Sushi Pop, Dove Cut, and then from Dove Cut I went and I opened the pizzeria.
Those are some of the best restaurants in the area too. So
Yeah, when I graduated culinary school, I said to myself that I was never going to work in a crappy restaurants. So I wanted to work in the best that I could find and try to learn as much as I can.
That's so cool. What were you doing at those restaurants, like specifically?
Like at Luma, when I was at Luma, I worked every station but grill.
Okay.
Because I refused to work that station because that station was a beast.
Yeah, I bet.
And then at Prato, I was supposed to be the tournant, but then when we opened, one of the pizza guys froze, so they put me on pizza, and I stayed there the whole time. And then when I went to the Pig, I think I worked grill at the Pig.
Yeah.
And then at Sushi Pop, I was hired as like a lead cook, and within 2-3 months, I was a sous chef.
Wow.
So I was a sous chef for almost 4 years.
What a great experience. Yeah. And so that was pre-COVID, obviously.
Way
so
pre-COVID.
Before everything kind of changed and shifted, and those were the good old days of restaurants. Not to say that they're not good now or that they can't get good again, but it's just different, right?
I think everything's going to get different now. Now the Michelin Guide is here, so everybody's trying to push to get that recognition.
That's not a bad thing at all, is it?
Just, do it for the right reasons.
Yeah, of course. Ultimately, yeah. And I think a lot of people were already doing that. The restaurants that have been recognized thus far really are super solid in that regard.
Yeah, like our neighbor right here, Cadence.
Yes. I know. They are
I've been there once and I was blown away.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I've been there once as well.
Wish I could go again, but I can't afford it.
I know, yeah. It's a special occasion kind of treat. Yeah, but that, again, like that's that elevated experience. Like you could travel the world and you may not get a better version of that.
Yeah.
Like they are doing it at that top level, and they've traveled, they've studied, and it's exceptional in every regard. So you know what you're paying for ultimately. So it's there's all different levels of it, and having that appreciation, having the palate for it. I just recorded an episode with Tonda, who's the cheese lady at East End. And so bread and cheese are just so hand in hand. And
bread, cheese, and wine.
Right? Yes, exactly. Yeah. And it's like those complementary goods, finding those connections and just those things that like kind of draw us to sharing a meal with people, and that there's no better way to connect than over a meal.
Over a meal, yeah. Breaking bread.
Yeah, right.
Breaking bread.
Right, there
You know where that phrase came from?
I do not.
So in the Middle East, it's actually looked as a sign of violence to cut bread with a knife.
Okay,
So
interesting.
they break it and then share.
Wow, I never knew that. It's like those expressions that you just never think about the origin of.
Yeah, breaking bread is,
That's very interesting, because you would never think that would be controversial, right? Using a bread knife.
No, I mean here that's the norm.
Yeah,
you slice it, but over there is just break it.
There's something very satisfying about just like breaking bread,
especially when it's warm and you see the steam and this.
You get that experience all the time, right? This is a lifestyle that you've built for yourself.
In a way, yeah.
It's cool.
It's funny because, at home it's like, we don't have any bread. I'm like,
what?
What do you mean we don't have any bread?
Is that a thing that's said at your home?
Oh,
really? Interesting.
Because it doesn't last.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, I bring bread, and it's
time to make more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in my house, we go through, 4 loaves a week.
Wow. That's great.
I mean, we eat is constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And if I make something that has an addition, meaning like a fruit and nut, or a different grain, or like a rye chocolate,
yeah,
it lasts like nothing.
You have that like built-in audience, right? You have the appreciation at home. That's such a cool thing.
I'm always experimenting with new flavors. And he's like, Papa, what's this? I'm like, well, this is, whatever. So like, okay.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
I love it. So the name is for your wife and your last name. So it's Cruz.
Cruz Morgensen.
Morgensen. Mm-hmm.
But actually, it's if you look at the way it has the hyphen,
Yes.
so that's our way our kids' last name is in their birth certificate. It's Cruz hyphen Mogensen. So that's the
okay.
CM. It's not us together. It's named
love
after
that.
them. It's like the Cruz Mogensen Bakery, and I make the Cruz Mogensen Bakery for them to take care of them and to like grow and have something.
It's named in their honor. That's beautiful. I love that. And CM for short. And then
Bakarí means bakery in Icelandic. So my girlfriend or fiance or unofficial wife,
sure.
she's from Iceland, so that's why I name Bakarí, the Icelandic way. So that way there's a connection, the two of us are children, Bakarí for Icelandic, and then me being Puerto Rican, I don't know, I'm just there in the equation. I'm the maker.
right. Behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so nice.
But it's funny because we're both islanders.
Yeah.
I come from the land of fire, and she comes from the land of ice. Although Iceland is considered the land of ice, fire and ice because of the volcanoes.
So elemental. And so you met in Florida then?
Prato. She was
okay.
a server at Prato, and I was the pizza, one of the pizza guys.
Oh, that's amazing. I love Prato. It's an exceptional place. So you are doing bread full time. This is like your,
full-time bread, and then I do pizza usually once a week at the Audubon market. And unless there's like a different pop-up or a different kind of event that I'm hired to do pizza, that's the only place that I do pizza.
It is such a different pizza experience, being that it's a sourdough crust. And the toppings that you use are often from the other vendors at the market. So very, very fresh toppings. There's always something new on the menu as far as the pizza goes. Like, I'm such a fan. Like,
Thank you. Well, I try to keep it simple. So I always have a margarita. I will always have a meat, whether it be a pepperoni or sausage or something. And then I have a veggie pizza, which is usually the market pie. So usually I show up, no veggies. And I'll go to all the different vendors. What do you have? What do you have? What do you have? Okay, I'll take this, and that's my pizza.
So you have a sourdough pizza with veggies that are picked fresh that day, typically.
Yep.
Which, where else are you going to find that ever, right? Monday nights at Stardust, 5 to 8.
Yep. That's it.
Go check out Cesar's Pizza. Cesar, I'm sorry.
Cesar, yeah.
Yeah. Not to be confused with Little Caesars, which is like a totally different pizza altogether. Yeah.
Not too good Detroit style.
No. Yeah. Oh, is Detroit style one of your favorite pizzas then?
There's a pizzeria here called Sodo Square.
I've heard of it. I've not tried it yet.
It's really good.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite pizzeria right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a chain that's called Jet's Pizza that has
I've tried them. They were okay.
It was okay.
Their dough was good. Their sauce and cheese.
Right. Yeah, that's the chain experience, right? Yeah, I need to make it to
Sodo.
Yeah. See, that's the thing, that the distinction. It's like nobody's doing it at that level for Detroit style.
No, theirs is really good. It's like they nailed it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
it's
so
worth
good to
it. It's
hear.
worth going there.
Yeah. I think it's always a good, like, pizza kind of creates an atmosphere too, right?
Yeah.
You just kind of instantly feel like you're having a party when you have a pizza. Even if it's just you having a pizza, like that's how I feel about it.
I have a pizza all the time. That's my favorite food.
Yeah, same. So some of the loaves that you'll have at the market, there's a Khorasan.
So Khorasan is a variety of wheat that originated in Syria. It looks like an extra long grain of rice, so it's very long.
Okay.
And it has like a yellowish color. So when you grind it, sometimes I buy the whole grain and I grind it myself, or sometimes I buy the flour. When you grind it, when you mix the bread with it, the bread will have that like yellow hue to it.
Yeah.
And the inside, the crumb is like super like creamy and fluffy. It's like exceptional for making French toast.
Wow.
But yeah, that's one of the wheats that I like using. I like the flavor I like the texture more than anything. That creamy, fluffy texture that you get out of it is incredible.
Yeah. So that you typically do have that on Monday nights?
No, the one that I always have is the country loaf, which is the traditional, sourdough. That one has a little bit of whole wheat. And the whole wheat that I'm using is also from Janie's Mill. They don't even call it whole wheat, they call it whole kernel. Because the difference when they make flour, no, I don't make flour.
Yeah.
So you take the grain, and they usually take the husk out, and they use the inside, which is called the endosperm, and that's why you get white flour.
Okay.
And then they take that and they bleached it. So what they do is they grind the kernel, the whole kernel, with the husk. They grind it in a stone grinder, and then they sift it. And then the sifting is getting rid of the bigger pieces,
Okay.
and getting the finer flour.
Yeah.
So with their whole kernel, they just grind it and put it in a bag. It has all the vitamins, which is usually when you see a store-bought flour, it will say, wheat flour and riboflavin and all these other additives. That's all the vitamins that are naturally occurring in the whole wheat, but they take out because they get rid of the husk.
And then they add it back in.
And that's why the store-bought flour has a particular flavor to it, because of all those additives.
Wow. Yeah, and it's never as good when they add those things.
No.
Because it's supposed to be present in it naturally, and you can't fool nature, You can fool people, but you can't fool nature.
I mean, I'm used to it now. I can tell the flavor, certain flours has a certain bitterness to it.
Sure.
So, I mean, I'm like, oh, that's this flour. And they're like, huh?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's such a skill. Yeah, and it takes that amount of time with it to understand that relationship and how it's going to come out.
Making all the loaves and tasting. I mean, what about if I put this amount of flour, this amount of flour? Different varieties. Different ratios of water to flour to salt. Everything changes.
Yeah, I think that love and that dedication to working at the process as long as you have and trying out as many things as you have, I just feel like that's such a unique story. Maybe there are other bakeries that they specialize in that, but it's ultimately they've got to kind of go with something that works and then move forward with it. But you have really tried all of these varieties. So you've found just the thing that works for you. And so that's the reason that your product is as solid and consistent as it is.
Well, I need to make something that I like. I'm not going to put something out there, to please people, but then I don't like it. So, I mean, it doesn't really, because then if I don't taste it, how am I going to know the quality of it?
Right.
So.
Right. And that's part of being a chef as well, right?
Yeah.
Having that refined taste and making stuff that you love.
Taste. You always have to taste. Like when I was working the pasta station at Luma, Brandon will tell me, you taste everything. When you work the pasta station, I expect you to gain 20 pounds.
Yeah.
Because you're going to taste every pasta that goes out. I'm like, okay. There you are. Every time you make it.
Did you gain 20 pounds?
No.
That's great. Yeah. You've got a great metabolism. You can tell. So that's excellent. Yeah. Yeah. And it's a testimony of that if you're eating that much bread and, other breads, if you did that with, it would show, right?
Yeah. You feel bloated. And then you start puffing up.
It's not a great experience.
No.
We've all experienced that. And I think that's why people kind of shy away from bread. And there's lots of diets that are eliminating those kind of things. But then realizing you can still have versions of bread that aren't going to affect you in that way and that aren't going to make you gain weight. And they have all the vitamins and nutrients that you're supposed to be getting.
Yeah, it's good bread. It's
right.
What bread is supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's not what it became. Especially in America.
Right.
Because if you go to Europe, you find real bread.
Yeah.
You look at the ingredients, it's like flour, water, salt, yeast or levain.
Yeah.
Come into America and you have a list of 32 ingredients to make a loaf of bread, it makes you think.
Yeah, and I think that as people travel overseas and they realize that some of those things that you get over there, you kind of can get here because people are using those traditional methods and it's smaller batch. You just have to seek it out, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one thing. You can't, it took me a while there's a few bakeries here, Nomad Bakehouse.
Yes.
And
they do a lot of stuff at Red Light as well, Nomad.
Yeah. She specializes more in pastries, but her bread is really good also.
Yeah.
And then, in Miami, Zach the Baker. But here, I think she's basically the only other one that I know that's making sourdough, plain straight sourdough with just 4 ingredients.
Yeah. For how big Orlando is, the fact that there are only 2 bread makers that you can find in the area, and 2 that are often in Audubon Park. I know
Yeah.
she's looked for a bakery here in the neighborhood, and I hope that works out at some point.
I've been trying to also, but
It's tough here.
yeah, the real estate is.
It's very limited. Yeah. I know. We would love that as well. So you are shopping kind of for a brick and mortar.
I've been shopping for like almost a year now.
Yeah.
And you can either get anybody on the phone, or you get them and it's too expensive.
Right.
Or they're like, oh, we're looking to increase foot traffic. And you're like, okay.
Which I think a bakery would, right? Yeah. I mean, logically. So you're baking bread out of a commissary kitchen.
I'm baking bread out of the Winter Pines Golf Club.
Oh, perfect. Wow. That's right around the corner from here, too. It's interesting kind of learning about how Ceylon Hut is at Fashion Square Mall. So they have, a spot in the food court, and they're using the kitchen there. So that totally works, even though they don't need the foot traffic because they don't have shops set up there.
Yeah, he mostly does the pop-ups.
Yeah.
But he uses that as his commissary kitchen.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's interesting to hear the different places that are the non-traditional kitchens because...
Well, that's the only way to do it. If you're doing pop-ups, like if you try to pay for a ghost kitchens are like so expensive, it's not even funny.
Yeah.
And then if you try to rent a commissary kitchen, you're sharing space, so now you have the risk of somebody taking your ingredients, or if you want extra space, you have to pay for that also. So it gets expensive really quick.
Yeah.
So you have to find unusual ways to try to do your stuff, something, like a golf course. Who will think that I will be making bread out of a golf course?
I know. That's a cool story in itself, isn't it? How did you connect with Winter Park Pines?
The guy who runs the clubhouse, their little vending service there, he's a friend of Bruno Fonseca. So Bruno Fonseca put me in contact with him, and we started talking, and he's like, yeah, we have this space in the back, can you use it? I'm like, yes.
Wow.
There I am.
That's so convenient. That's perfect. And so how many loaves do you bake per week, kind of on average? Is there a way to count that?
I mean, if I count just Monday and Friday, that's 100 loaves right there, just in those 2 days.
Wow.
And that's not counting all the baguettes that I do for the Ravenous Pig, all the bread that I do for the Kitty Beautiful downtown, or like if I do any kind of sweets, or the Saturday Farmers Market. Just those 2 days is 100 loaves.
Wow.
Period.
That's incredible.
And then from there and going up. Ravenous Pig will be like another 100 baguettes a week. And then they get some loaves. Plus I'm making bread for the golf course also now. So yeah, there's a lot of bread.
So it's really just you. Do you have...
No,
just you. Wow. That's impressive.
Me doing everything.
Yeah. That's a real dedication, right? And a labor of love. It's something that you absolutely love to do.
I enjoy it all the time. Even though it's like, I don't feel like doing this today. I get there and I start making done. Okay, I'm good.
Oh, that's awesome. You get into the flow of it, and it's like, you know what you're doing. It has that tactile, that hands-on, and it's like a meditation, right?
Yeah, it's almost like meditation. You go, like, if I really want to, lose my mind, I put Miles Davis.
Nice.
And I start making bread.
Nice.
And my mind is just blank. Just going with emotions.
That's so healthy. Like, we all need something like that. And to find, like, your calling, your career being in line with that is such a cool thing.
I mean, it took a while. This is,
sure.
If you consider it cooking, this is my 4th career. If you consider baking separate, this will be my 5th career.
Okay. What were some of the others aside?
So music.
Oh, yeah.
I went to music engineering school in California.
Wow.
Then I went to music sales. Then I went to nursing. Then I went to cooking, and now baking.
Wow. That's like a well-rounded life experience too. So having that creative element, that appreciation and love for music, and also the healthcare, being a caretaker, thinking about what is healthy ultimately, right? That's like your entire mindset has to be in that. And then moving on to food, which is really part of health.
Yeah, food is medicine. Like you start listening to the stories of the people that had diabetes or something, and then they changed their diet and diabetes went away.
Yeah.
Like just by changing diet.
Right.
So
with what Gabby went through health-wise, just learning about how foods affect inflammation and limiting that, figuring out the certain things to avoid. We have so much science backing it. There's tons of information that you can access on the internet, and sifting through and obviously finding the
right
accurate
one.
stuff is important. But understanding the science of why certain foods affect you in certain ways. And when you are undergoing medical treatment, the things that can kind of counteract the drugs that you have to take, and things that just don't process correctly in your body because there's something else going on, and understanding that relationship can make all the difference.
Yeah.
And just knowing that, there are certain foods that just are going to be problematic for you. So limiting them or eliminating them. But, Gabby can have your sourdough breads.
Yeah, I remember when she's like, I'm trying the bread.
Yeah.
I think your bread will be good. And then she will start getting it, every once in a while she'll get a loaf and she's like, I'm fine.
That's such a revelation, too. I mean, she, growing up in Panama and kind of knowing what really good food is, and having just such an appreciation for different cultures of food, and she loves to cook and loves to explore and travel and just see how different foods are prepared. And that's how, her involvement with the farmers market, all of the other things that she's done in the area. And it's like, yeah, when you can get something back in your life that you love and you thought that you wouldn't really be able to have it anymore, like, what an exciting connection.
Yeah, when you have something that reminds you of your childhood, and then suddenly you find something that's similar, you're like, oh, I can have this again.
Yeah. So what you're doing is such a gift to our community. Like, it really is. It's something that, I think that the appreciation is there, and you see the excitement at the market. It's really nice to get that interface. Like, you're right there with the customers.
It's nice to know that people enjoy it, that they appreciate it. It's funny when they start showing up at 4:00. Can I buy a loaf? No, we're not open yet.
Yeah, market starts at 5.
Yeah, market starts at 5. You need to wait.
But they don't want to miss their chance. So
because they know that if they come after 6:00,
yep, that's it.
It's a gamble.
It can be, right? Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, to have that following and that natural progression. I hope that you do find a brick and mortar, and I hope that it's close by. Both of those things would be nice. But either way, like, just having an established place. I mean, it sounds like you're in a really good spot now, and you're growing the business and that following, and that is so key to this long-term success of a business as well.
Yeah, I mean, I found something that's people appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
I like what I do.
Yeah. So
I'm gonna keep doing it. I'm trying to get my kids involved.
Yeah.
My daughter wants nothing to do with it. My son, yes. He thinks it's a game.
Sure.
Can I play with the dough? Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
That's a good way. I mean, it's like, having that tactile, like learning it early on and being like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah, he likes it. And he's like, he gets it and he just spreads it all over his hands. And I'm like, oh my God. We're going to get all this dough out of you now.
You got to start somewhere, though, right?
But,
Yeah.
But he likes it. He enjoys it. He's like, he always tells me that he's going to be a construction worker so he can build me a bakery.
Wow, that's very sweet.
7.
Yeah, I was going to ask. Wow. So that's about the time that your fascination with bread started as well. So what perfect timing, right?
Be
full circle.
Construction worker, contractor or something, make tons of money and build me a bakery. There you go.
That wouldn't be a bad thing, would it?
It would be good. I don't have to pay rent.
Yeah. So tell me about your starter, the child.
The child.
Indeed.
So the child is 13 years old now, I think.
Okay.
13, 14. I don't even know. I lost count already.
And for people that don't know how that works.
So this child is how you make a starter is you essentially put water and flour, equal parts by weight, water and flour. You mix it and you leave it outside with like a tablecloth or something on top. And what you're doing is you're capturing all the bacteria, all the yeast, which is a bacteria that's in the air. And they start feeding of that mixture that you made. And that's when you see it start going up and down, up and down. So you have to do that for a month, feeding it every day before it's active and ready to use. So I did that, 13. The first time I made it, I killed it. So I have to make it again. And that's the one that I've had ever since. Just keep feeding it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's certain conditions that have to be maintained, right? So
I mean, I don't know. I abuse mine. So
okay.
I like sometimes I feed it like I have a different, it's the same one, but I change it. Instead of being a liquid starter, it's a stiff starter, which is the more Italian style.
Okay.
For two reasons. I don't have to feed it as often, so I save money on flour. And I like the consistency that I get. It gives the bread more structure.
Okay.
So, and that's the one thing that I noticed. Using the liquid starter, the bread will be a little flat because you're adding more water and flour. This one has twice the amount of flour as it does water, so it gives it a little more structure, makes it more round.
Yeah.
And I like the taste.
Yeah, that consistency it's so specific to certain types of bread, right? Like that there's a sponginess to it, there's a firmness to it, and the crispiness of the crust, like all of it goes together.
Yeah.
This really makes me want to eat some bread,
Yeah, I wish I'm there. Maybe I should have brought a bread.
We do have some in the freezer too.
There you
It
go.
freezes really well.
Freezes really well.
We found these freezer bags that are reusable.
I know there's one that has beeswax. It's like flax with beeswax. And then you can also use the silicone ones.
And they're reusable, so it's sustainable, and it freezes well, toasts well after that. Any like tips for doing that as far as like toasting? Do you kind of leave a bread out so that it kind of comes to temperature a little bit before you toast it? Yeah, that's important.
So usually if you buy like a big loaf, if you know that you're not going to be able to eat the whole thing, cut it in half, wrap it, put it in the freezer, and then this loaf that you leave outside will last you 2-3 days before it gets hard as a rock.
Yeah.
But at that point, you can, croutons, breadcrumbs, you can use it as a thickener for a soup. So, I mean, there's still a lot of uses for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Feed the ducks.
Yeah, that's these things are good to know, because like people that only are familiar with store-bought bread, they're like, oh, this bread will be fine here for a month, and it's like, no, that's there's a problem there. If it's not breaking down naturally, then
you get that blue mold on top.
Yeah,
like okay.
It's yeah.
I mean, that's supposed to happen, but in like 3 days, not a week.
Yeah, exactly. So speaking of Chef Bruno at the Foreigner Experience, or I guess it's really Foreigner
restaurant now.
Yeah. He carries some of your breads there as well?
He does. I do a specialty loaf for him. It's called the Triple Black.
Okay.
So it has a wheat called Black Emmer, which is a type of farro, and then black pepper, activated charcoal, so the actual loaf is black, and black cocoa powder.
So what are some of the taste properties of that?
It's essentially the traditional sourdough bread. It's a little more heartier because of the farro. And then you get the black pepper mixed in through the dough. Wow. So you get that spiciness, that black pepper.
That sounds
it's
amazing.
Really good. It's very unique.
Yeah.
Very unique.
Have you had a chance to eat at Bruno's restaurant since he opened?
I worked with him for a few months.
Oh, okay,
I was helping him when he was doing the pop-up in the Heavy.
Yes.
Yeah, so I helped him for a couple of months, and then I got accepted to like 3 farmers markets at the same time, and I'm like, I can't help you no more. Sorry. Like,
yeah, he seems to be all set. Like
he's right now here on Corinne.
Such a gorgeous space. Yeah. He gave us a tour.
It looked like a ship. That's what I told him. It looked like a ship.
It's designed to look like a ship. I can't wait to get him on the podcast as well. I hear such good things about his restaurant. We just need to make it in there at some point. But what a treat to have that in the neighborhood, just like adding to the rich culinary talents that are already here. Yep. These are the things that really have put our neighborhood on the map and made it that destination. People come here to check out East End. A lot of people are going just for Gideon's cookies because they're over at Disney Springs. And that's like an amazing magnet of, and then when they're here, they realize there's all these other things and these things that are really catching on, that like the wafu upstairs at East End.
I've had them.
Yeah.
They're
like
good.
What a treasure.
Or
Just
the ramen shop, what's it called?
Domu. Yeah. They got the Michelin recognition as well. So yeah, just all of these things that
it's a really nice neighborhood. I really like it here. Like I stumble upon it when I was making bread from home, and I'm like, oh, maybe I was selling to neighbors and people were ordering bread and I was delivering, and I'm like, oh, maybe I can find a farmer's market and I can sell it. And I remember going online and I found it and I filled the application, and I started talking with Isabel.
Yep.
And I remember she's asking me, I'm like, is your bread considered cottage bread? And at that point it was, because I was making out of home. And she's like, yeah, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
When can you start? I'm like, next week.
That's amazing.
And, I remember the first day that I was at the market, I ran out of bread in like 30 minutes. I was just like, what do I do now? And she was, well, just hang around and, promote your business.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
yeah. And check out the other vendors and see what's going on. Yeah, you have a built-in audience at that market, which is, it's amazing for the new vendors that come and experience that, because they may be at other markets and it takes a little while to catch on.
Yeah.
And it was that way at this market as well for a while, but now people are like, okay, they trust everybody's been vetted. It's going to be the best example of what you can find in the area. Just shop and just.
And that's the one thing that I appreciate about this market. Everybody that's there is that they put pride in whatever they bring.
Correct.
It's not like, you go to some other markets and it's like craft and there's two things of food and you're like.
It's sort of filling the space, right? Because usually like the footprint of the Monday night market at Stardust in the parking lot, it's like, it's a very distinct amount of space. So, it gets packed at a certain point, so you can't add any other vendors. Yeah. So the focus has always been food, and over time, less and less will you see any kind of craft stuff. There still are a couple.
There's a couple, but it's not the main focus. The main focus is food.
Yeah.
And in other markets, it's the opposite.
It really is.
And not only is the focus in this one food, but it's also quality. Everybody that's there has a quality product.
Exactly.
That's the one thing that I appreciate, because you go to another market and you're like, really, you're selling this? Okay. Like,
some of it can be like resellers, even like the produce at some of the other market. You're getting literally the same product that was going to Publix.
Yep.
And they so that doesn't make it a farmer's market. It's Publix outdoors, basically. Yeah, and people don't always understand how that translates too. Like if you're not buying from the farmer and they can't talk to you about, there's no transparency essentially. And luckily some of that is changing too. I know, especially with the SNAP program at Winter Park Farmers Market. And like Gabby is the reason that the SNAP program is there. It's like they have to label their stuff.
Yep.
So you know where that produce is coming from, and it's attracted more local farmers, because even though they're competing with these resellers, it's now kind of a more level playing field, because you know why you're paying more, you know where this stuff came from, and that information is available to customers where it wasn't before.
And that's why sometimes makes it hard, the price tag being so high. But, you start thinking about it and like, well, this is grown by this person, which I see right here.
Yep.
Or this is made by this person, which is actually right there.
Yeah.
It's like,
this is their sole income. Like they only have time for farming. So
it's like me making bread. This is all I do now. Like last time when I started delivering bread to the Ravenous Pig, Clay, the chef there now, I worked with him at Dovecote. He was my chef at Dovecote. And he knew, I talked about it. I want to make bread. I just want to make bread. This is all I want to do. Like, I don't want to work in kitchens anymore.
Yeah.
And one day I show up there and he's like, so what are you doing? Are you doing something else? I'm like, no, this is all I do. And he's like, good for you.
Right.
This is what you've been talking about for so long. I'm like, yeah. Like, this is what I want.
That's awesome. It's a rare story too. I mean, we have our side hustles that are our like passion projects, and they don't always get to become our careers. and to really dive in and really figure out, like, I can make a living off of this. I can help support the family off of this. This is providing to the community and to my family in a way that is sustainable. And that's such an incredible thing. It's inspiring, really.
I mean, I just do what I like.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I mean,
it just happened to be something that everybody likes also.
Right. Yeah. To find that thing and to have the passion to return to it and to put the time in.
I never left it.
Right.
That's the thing. I never left it. Even when I was at Luma Prato, I was always making bread. At Luma, I would always make a hazelnut bread.
Wow.
And, you know, my 2 days off, I'll be like, okay, I'm making bread this weekend. Would you guys want a regular bread or you guys want hazelnut? Hazelnut! Hazelnut! Okay, fine. Hazelnut it is.
That's awesome.
And then, you know, like Brian, the pastry chef, will make like homemade Nutella.
Yeah.
So everybody's just gorging on, you know, hazelnut bread with chocolate spread on top.
What could be better?
That's it.
That's amazing. And I mean, Steve Lewis at Gideon's, it's a very similar story. It's like he perfected his recipes. He worked for 15 years on his chocolate chip cookie recipe. And he found it at a very young age that, like, this is something that he's interested in. And so he had his main business, like, he's always been an entrepreneur, and it had nothing to do with cookies, but he was making them on the side. And it was like, people appreciated it. And it's like, oh, this is a viable thing. This is something I can do.
I mean, the cooking aspect is like, I'm sure Gabby will tell you, like, if in a Hispanic household, your grandma or your mom is always in the kitchen. So that's how it was for me. My mom was working, so my grandparents took care of me. So whenever my grandma was in the kitchen, there was a stool in the kitchen where I will sit and watch her since I was like 3 years old, 3 years old. Like, you know, in the Latin, at least in our culture, coffee is like super common. I've been drinking coffee since I was 2 years old. My grandma will give it to me in my bottle, and she will call it ponche. So she will take coffee with, you know, milk and sugar, and then she will beat an egg yolk in it for extra protein.
Okay.
So since I was 2 years old, that's what I've been drinking.
Wow.
Like,
that's amazing.
Like, can't live without coffee.
Yeah.
Can't live without bread. So
I agree. I feel like I can't live without. I haven't tried it, and hopefully I never have to try it. But
what, no coffee?
Yeah.
Oh no, I can do it.
I know.
I get migraine.
I do too. Yeah. Even if you go like a day, I mean, it's a thing, isn't it? Yeah. Coffee and bread are the things that, you know, two of the things that really make life worth living, I think. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today and for what you do, everything that you do. Your website, where do people find you online?
cmbakarí.com.
All right.
It's a simple page, you know. And Monday nights at the Audubon. And I think on the website there's if people want to hire for like events or classes, private classes or whatever, it's right there.
Cool. That's good to know.
I get a message and we start the conversation.
And do you have like a bread subscription program as well?
I do.
Okay, tell me about that.
So I do. I mean, you can do it weekly. So, and it's cheaper. I think it's $30 for the month. So you get one loaf of bread every week, which the country loaf is usually $11 a loaf. So you're essentially paying for 3 and getting 4.
That's great.
Or you can do it bi-weekly. So every 2 weeks you get a loaf.
That's good to know. And they can sign up online for that as well.
Sign up online, yeah.
That's perfect. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about your pizza, about your bread. Like, you're really doing something special, and we're grateful that you're at our market.
I'm appreciative of your support.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you for having me here.
Definitely. We'll see you soon.
All right, thank you.
This episode is brought to you in part by the Audubon Park Community Market. Join us every Monday from 5 to 8 p.m., rain or shine, in the parking lot of Stardust Video and Coffee. Located at 1842 East Winter Park Road, this weekly gathering of makers, farmers, gardeners, fishmongers, ranchers, craftsmen, artisans, entrepreneurs, neighbors, and friends brings the very best of Central Florida to you every week. We do hope you enjoyed this episode. If so, please click subscribe and leave a review if you'd like. We'll see you next time.